Hello there, fabulous financiers. Welcome back to the Do.Different.Better show, where we talk about wealth, wisdom, and money moves, making finance simple for everyday people. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen, founder and CEO of Social Impact Now, Connective Institute, and managing director of the Integrated Capital Fund. Thank you for joining me today. In our last episode, we dived into the exciting world of investment clubs. Whether you're a seasoned investor or you're just starting out, joining an investment club can be a game changer. I shared what investment clubs are, their deep, rich history, how to start an investment club, and ways to grow your investment club. Today, we're talking about something I just absolutely love and adore. Today, we're talking about an incredibly important thing, which is teaching financial literacy to kids. This includes grandkids, nieces, nephews, cousins, any kid. Whether your kids are just starting school or they're preparing for college, it's never too early or too late to start talking about money and finance, even if you didn't get that education yourself. In this episode, we'll cover some practical tips for different age groups to help your kids develop healthy money habits. In this first segment, I'm going to talk about financial literacy to our youngest learners, kids age 3 to 10. We'll explore fun and engaging ways to introduce money concepts and share tips and cultural perspective from different communities. So let's get into it. So let's just start with the basics. Kids between age 3 and 10 are at a great age to start learning about money. But how do we make this fun and understandable for them? Money can seem like this really weird, abstract concept, right? The first thing to do is really sit down and explain what money is and what we use to buy things that we want and need. That's what money is. I really encourage, and I know it can be difficult because no one uses cash anymore, but use physical coins and bills to really make it tangible. There is games and things like that that have play money, but I really think really getting them oriented to real money starts to heighten the sensitivity and awareness around what this thing that they hold in their hands means and is. In our first episode, you heard me talk about my money story. And in upcoming episodes, I'm going to be asking people about what's their first memory of money. And I think we're going to have some interesting perspectives, but show them how a quarter, a dime, and a dollar look different from each other and that they have different values. And just start you doing that. Just start talking with them like, oh, this is a dime. It's 10 cents. And that, this is a quarter. It's 25 cents. Over time, they're going to get to know. They may not get it the first time, but you probably didn't either. Here's a fun fact. Did you know that the first paper money was created by the Chinese during the Tang Dynasty over 1,000 years ago? Can you imagine carrying around all those coins all at the same time? The other thing is teaching them about earning money. Teach them that money is earned by doing work. Simple chores like cleaning up their toys or helping with small tasks can be rewarded with a small allowance. Or just you can have one of the things that my parents did is we had a job chart and you get to sign up for these jobs around the house or around the neighborhood. Cleaning up the neighborhood was a great one that I actually loved because I skateboarded and I hated tripping on trash when I was skateboarding. But my parents gave me a little bit, like $1, to clean up around the neighborhood. This really helps them understand this concept of earning. Here's a tip. Using a sticker chart to track chores, and they have some you can buy on Amazon that are all you have to do is use a dry erase marker to write in the different types of chores. They even come with stickers that you can have them put on as they do different jobs, or they can earn their way to different rewards. Once they've completed a certain number of chores, they earn an allowance, or maybe it's a gift card or some other way that you're going to motivate them or reward them, right? Some people have some feelings about you shouldn't be rewarding them for things that they should be doing anyway. And that's fine. You can reward them for things that are extraordinary. I know my mom was not a fan of rewarding me for doing chores, but once again, doing things outside of my regular chore duties, like cleaning up in the neighborhood, maybe it was doing something for her without asking. These were sorts of things that these were the behaviors she wanted to reward. Then there's the concept of spending, saving, and sharing. So introducing this concept of spending, saving, and sharing by using 3 jars or 3 piggy banks. Label each jar to explain what they are for. Spending is for things that you want to buy now. Saving is for bigger things that they want later, and sharing is for helping others. Here's a fun activity. Give your child a small amount of money and help them decide how to distribute it in among the three jars. Obviously, doing something that divides by three is very practical, but this really helps them understand the importance of engaging with money and managing money. One of the things that I used to do with my son's birthday is near Christmas. And so obviously he's getting birthday gifts, but he's also getting Christmas gifts in a very short window of time. And one of the things that I had him do was we had an 18 gallon tub. And I said, all the toys that he owns have to fit in that tub, right? So as he would receive new gifts, either for his birthday or for Christmas, he would have to go through the process of figuring out what was going to come out. And we would talk about what could be donated, and then what needed to be thrown away, because the goal was not to give somebody else your trash, right? The goal was to be able to like dispel or differentiate between the stuff that really didn't have any future life in it and versus the things that could still be used by somebody else. We both loved this activity, and it really taught him about one, recycling, but also upcycling. But the other thing that I would have him do is once we gathered up all those toys that he was going to give away or donate, we would actually take them to a place and donate them. So whether that was a women's shelter or a children's hospital, I would take him with me, and he would be responsible for giving those toys over. It gave him a great sense of pride and really taught him this idea of sharing and caring and philanthropy, which to this day he still practices. Here's some other interactive, practical tips that you can do. Using interactive games like Monopoly Junior or the Game of Life to teach money concepts in a fun way. These games introduce kids to the idea of learning and spending and saving. A little fun fact that Monopoly, the game, was originally created during the Great Depression, and the idea was to teach people about the economic system. Today, it's a fun way to learn about money management. I don't know about your family, but it can get pretty aggressive in my house when we play Monopoly, right? Another way is by using story time. Read books about money like Lemonade in Winter by Emily Jenkins or Money Ninja by Mary Nin. These stories introduce financial ideas through engaging narratives that kids love. Think about this. After reading a book, one of these books or any book, discuss the story with your child. Ask them what they learned about money and how would they use their own money in a similar situations that were talked about in the book. Then, of course, there's just those everyday teaching moments, using everyday activities like grocery shopping to teach kids about prices and budgeting and making choices. Maybe what you do is you give them $2 or $3 or $5, and they get to spend that $5 in the store. And you may even put parameters on it, like you can buy what you want, but it can't be candy or it can't be soda, right? You can give them some parameters around that. In the Jewish communities, it's a tradition to give children a small amount of money called the Hanukkah gelt during the holiday of Hanukkah. This practice can also be used to teach kids about the value of money and giving. There's some great historical perspectives and cultural contexts around these concepts of money. Teaching kids about money involves really great opportunity to share cultural perspectives and traditions from different communities, whether they're your own or others. So in the African community, the tradition of susu and tanda, and we talked about that in a previous episode, are very, very common. These are informal savings groups where members contribute to a common fund, which is then given to one member at a time. That usually sometimes the member, it'll rotate, but every member will receive whatever is put into the pot over time. This teaches the importance of saving and community support from a young age. So maybe you bring together your kids' friends and they create their own susu, right? Maybe it's, and they can figure out how they want to do that, how they want to manage. It's kind of like a little mini investment club. If you want to know about more investment clubs, look at my previous episodes where we talk about that. There's no reason why you can't get kids to start their own small investment club. Maybe it's an investment club to start a business, whatever that is. This is a great way to make these connections. In the Jewish community, they often emphasize the value of tzedakah. It is charitable giving. From a young age, children are encouraged to put coins in the tzedakah. I'm probably saying that horribly, so I apologize. To help those in need. This teaches both financial responsibility and the importance of helping others. In the Asian community, the children receive lychee or red envelopes during holidays like Chinese New Year. These envelopes contain money and symbolize good luck and prosperity. It's a great opportunity to teach children about saving and the cultural significance of money. In the Muslim community, there's a concept of zakat or almsgiving. It's a fundamental practice. Teaching children about zakat can help them understand the importance of sharing wealth and helping those in need. So, here's a call to action to put some of these ideas into motion for you as parents, grandparents, friends, family, guardians, whomever you have, whomever of those of you who have children in your care. Really start simple. Number one thing, start simple. You don't have to tell them about the history of money or the history of the stock market, right? Really begin with some very simple, basic concepts like identifying different kinds of coins and different kinds of bills. And gradually over time, begin to introduce them to more complex concepts as the child grows and their understanding of what you're talking about. But it's always helpful to use real life examples and interactive examples to make learning actually fun. And I think you'll be really surprised of like what it does for you. It may start to help reimagineer your relationship with money through talking with children. One great thing is to make a game out of identifying the coins and bills. Give your child a handful of change and ask them to sort them by type and by value, right? So you get your own little coin separator. The second thing you can do is be consistent. Make financial literacy a regular part of your discussions. Now, I'm not saying you need to talk about it every single day, but maybe it's once a month or maybe you have a theme. I used to have date nights with my son, and those would be a great opportunity to talk about these kinds of things. But consistency helps reinforce learning. Set aside a time each week or each month that you're going to talk about money, even if it's just for a few minutes. It doesn't have to be this big thing where it's like, okay, it's on the calendar, we're going to talk about money. But it's just that you are going to be consistent about, hey, the next time we go out to dinner, we're going to talk about the bill when we go out to dinner. The next time they ask me for money for a sport or for the book club at school, we're going to have a conversation about money. A lot of times these conversations organically can come up. We just, as parents and guardians, don't take advantage of the moment. So I'm asking you to stop and take a moment and be like, even if it's not in the moment, it may not be appropriate. Get some time, maybe that evening or that weekend, to revisit the conversation. But using a weekly allowance a weekly allowance distribution is another great teaching moment. It's an opportunity to talk about saving, sharing, and spending and what their choices are and engaging in really thoughtful decisions about money. Then the next thing is really being engaging and encouraging. If you come to the conversation really sour about money, that is going to definitely play a role in how they receive the information. So I encourage questions. Be patient. If you don't know the answer, say, you know what, that's a really good question. Let's go find out together, right? This doesn't have to be about making you feel bad or showing up the fact that how much you may not know about money and finance. Go on the journey together. But the goal here is to make learning about money fun and engaging. Celebrate their achievements and your own achievements. If you paid off a credit card, there's no reason why you can't celebrate with them and provide positive reinforcement, right? You're just demonstrating the behaviors that maybe you didn't get to see around having a better relationship with money. So here's one way: create a reward system for reaching savings goals. For example, if they save a certain amount, you can reward them with a special outing or a special treat. One of the things that I used to do with my son was whenever he wanted something, I said, I will pay for half and you have to save the other half. Right. So when he came to me and wanted an Xbox at the time was about $150. I said, if you save $75, I'll put in $75. When he got his first car at 16, I told him, you save half the money. I think the car was $3,000. I said, he was working at the time. I said, you save $1,500. I will put in $1,500. So it was a great way to just know that he wasn't in it alone, but also he had some level of responsibility, but that he wasn't responsible for the full burden or liability. The other thing is understanding and learning about other cultural practices around money. Look for and share stories and practices from your own cultural background or other cultural backgrounds to provide a rich understanding of money. This not only teaches financial literacy, but really connects them to their heritage. If you're Irish, if you're Italian, if you're Black, if you're African immigrant, all of us have these stories or cultural concepts that go around money. And so if you don't know what yours is, I encourage you to go and research that and find that and share that with your children. It's also great to share other people's cultural practices, right? So that's it for this segment on teaching financial literacy to kids 3 to 10. By starting early and making learning fun and engaging, you can help your children and maybe you develop a healthy relationship with money habits that will last a lifetime. Remember, the goal is to teach them that money is a tool that can help them achieve their dreams and make a positive impact on the world. Stay tuned in our next segment when I'm going to be talking about wealth education and practical tips to get started with your kids 11 to 14. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen. Thanks for listening to Do Different Better, and I'll see you after the break. Hey there, fabulous financiers. Welcome back to the Do Different Better show. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen, and today we're focusing on teaching financial skills to tweens and early teens age 11 to 14. This age group is ready to handle more detailed concepts and start practicing real life financial skills. So let's dive into budgeting, saving, and understanding banking, and some fun facts to keep it fresh. Let's dig in. So first, let's talk about budgeting and saving. At this age, 11 to 14, kids can really start managing their allowance and money earned from odd jobs to become more independent. And that's kind of what they're looking for, right? I know I was really looking to be independent. I had a babysitting gig at 11 years old, and I was never so happy to have my own money to be able to spend on bubblegum in your life, right? So let's first talk about allowance management. Teaching tweens how to manage their allowance is a great way to introduce them to budgeting. Encourage them to track their income and expenses. Maybe it's on their phone, maybe it's in a spreadsheet on their laptop, or just a simple notebook or an app can help work wonders, right? There's lots of great apps that are out there now that's probably more their speed. They're not writing things down anymore, but whatever tool works for them, I definitely encourage writing it down. There's something about writing it down that's very different than inputting it with your fingers. So maybe encourage them to do both, and maybe you do it with them. Say, hey, let's work on this like every week. Let's just check in Sunday morning, Saturday morning, and we're going to just track our expenses. Let's look at our bank account and see what happened last week. But help them create a budget that includes categories like saving, spending, and sharing. This helps them understand where their money is going. Next is creating some savings goals. Setting and achieving savings goals is really crucial. Help your tweens set realistic goals, whether it's saving for a new game or special outing or a bigger purchase. Did you know that according to a recent study, kids who save their allowance are more likely to make better financial habits as an adult? So it's never too early to start. Now let's start adding some cultural context to make this even more meaningful. So we've talked about this concept in the African immigrant community about Susu, which is a rotating savings club, and that's been a long-standing tradition. Family and friends pool their money together and they take turns receiving a lump sum. This teaches the value of saving, but also collective support. Next, let's talk about understanding banking. So opening a bank account can be an exciting milestone for tweens. There are many banks or financial institutions that specifically have accounts for young people under the age of 18. If you think that they're ready, take your child to open their own savings account. This teaches them about the banking system, as well as understanding what that building is and who are the people in those buildings, but also teaches them the importance of savings. Many banks really offer special accounts that have discounted fees or rates for them, but also provide parental oversight so they don't go blow all their money on the next Taylor Swift concert, right? But this is a great opportunity to explain to them how interest works. And if you don't know, ask the banker to explain how interest works. Now you're both going to learn. And but this will also talk about, and when they're talking about interest, how their money can grow over time in a savings account. Right now, the rates are meh, but the whole idea is that they really understand this notion of compounded interest and how the money grows by sitting in the bank, or it's the gateway to other financial investing instruments, because you've already started your investment club, which we talked about in the last episode, right? Then understanding the concept of online banking, show them how to check their balance and track their savings online using banking tools or other user-friendly platforms that really make it easy for kids to see their financial progress. Did you know that the first bank card was introduced in the 1960s? We have made so many strides in the online banking system. I remember all I could do was write checks, and now I can actually make my bank deposits using my phone. It's like things have just changed so much and will continue to change, particularly as we look at what's happening in the financial technology space. But it's super, super exciting, I think. So, here are going to be some practical tips to help your tween manage money effectively. There's a great app to learn. It's called The World of Money. I definitely recommend that. It's an or nonprofit organization that's run out of New York. It's really great for all age groups to really learn and understand about not only money, but the financial system. But introducing financial literacy through apps like Piggybot or Bankaroo really help make learning interactive and fun. They can help them track their allowance, set goals, and learn about budgeting. I would, let them explore some apps and tell them to come talk to you about the apps that they found and what they're thinking about, how they might want to manage their money. But these interactive tools really make financial literacy really fun and educational. Once again, there's the tried and true chore chart and earnings. So using this chore chart to help your tween earn money and understand the value of work, understanding um, how they assigning them specific chores and corresponding to payments to track their progress. So this could be a really great way to be able to help them really think about, long term, of like, oh, if I do X a minute chores, that it's going to earn me X amount of dollars, which then will allow me to buy that bike that I was looking for. Or as I was saying before, hey, I know my parents are going to put in half for this bike that I want to get. It's going to take me X amount of chores or X amount of dollars to get me there. Right. But also really have a good conversation around needs versus wants, right? Having a conversation with your tween about, do you need this thing or do you want this thing? One of the things when I was learning to be more financially stable and financially responsible was, I'd have these impulses when I would see something, right? I'd be out and about and I'd want to buy it. I started this practice of giving myself 24 hours and I would sleep on it. And after I slept on it, the next day, if I still had that same level of excitement, then I would go and buy it. It takes some discipline. I'm not saying it's easy, but even to this day, it's something now I do unconsciously. I'm like, do I really want that thing? Do I really need that thing? Is that thing going to take up space? Am I only going to use that thing for 2 weeks and then I'm going to forget about it? But it really helps with having a greater analysis of, one, not accumulating junk, right? And not accumulating stuff that's just going to sit and wasting, but really thinking about mindfully of like, what do I need versus things that I want, and is that thing that I want going to cost a bigger price because it will cause me to not be able to afford the thing that I need in the future, right? But once again, using real life examples like grocery shopping, planning an outing, or if there's an upcoming vacation, a birthday, or some other event, maybe it's something else that your child wants to do, but really helps them illustrate needs versus wants, right? So here's my call to action for parents. Um, Be involved. Regularly review savings and spending with them. Encourage and guide them as they make financial decisions. This involvement shows that you're invested in their financial education. Here's a tip. Like I said, set up money meetings between you and your tween to discuss financial progress and any questions that they have. And you know what? Make everybody have a job. We talked about in investment clubs. Everyone has a job. It's somebody's job to do some research on an investment opportunity. Maybe there's a job that each one of you do, and that's your time over breakfast to talk about what you learn or questions that you have that you can go and investigate together. Two, teach responsibility. Using financial discussions to teach responsibility and consequences of choices is really important and valuable. Discuss the impact of impulsive spending. Maybe share your experience with impulsive spending and how it maybe didn't serve you, or maybe how it did serve you. But what are the benefits of saving for long-term goals, right? Here's another fun fact. Studies show that children who are taught financial responsibility are far more likely to be um, financially stable as they move into adulthood. And I think that's what we all want as guardians and friends and family of the kids that are in our life. The third thing is to lead by example. Demonstrate good habits yourself. And by engaging this conversation with your kids, if you don't have good habits, this could be a great way for you to start with good habits. You and your child are going on this journey together. Kids learn a lot by observing their parents. So show them how you budget, show them how you save, talk them through if you're like trying to decide when you're buying a car or even buying a pair of shoes. What are you thinking about when you're making this decision? It kind of helps them understand, because I think we don't talk about enough of like, how do we make these decisions? It's from something as innocuous as buying a watch all the way up to buying a home. So by the time our children get to be adults, they don't know how to make these decisions because no one ever talked to them about. They've not been given an example of how these decisions may have been made. Doesn't mean that they're going to copy you, but they're getting context of like what goes into making the decision, or does nothing go into it and you're a very impulsive person. Involve them in the family budgeting discussions and decision making processes. Transparency about family finances can be a very powerful tool. If you're like me, a Gen Xer, like money was just not talked about. And certainly, particularly if you come from a poorer community, money was not talked about. And I think that is the most important time for money to be talked about, as well as when people are wealthy. Wealthy people, I've heard, don't also talk about this with their kids. And people, I've worked with clients who are, hey, I know there's an inheritance coming. I don't know how much it is. I don't know who's in control of it. I don't know who manages it, and no one will talk to me about it, right? That's actually not setting your children up for success if you're not talking to them about any sort of financial decisions or impacts that will have on them based on your wealth, or things that you own or the assets you have. But by following these steps and being actively involved in your child's financial education, you can help them develop a healthy relationship with money that will serve them well into adulthood. That's it for this segment on teaching financial skills to tweens and early teens. Join us after the break, where I'll discuss wealth education for 15 to 18-year-olds. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen, and you're listening to Do Different Better. See you after the break. Hey there, beautiful people. Welcome back to Do Different Better. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen. And in this segment, I will be focused on preparing teens ages 15 to 18 for financial independence. This is a really critical time to introduce them to more advanced financial concepts and real world responsibilities. Let's dive into budgeting, planning, credit, and loans, and some engaging fun facts and historical perspectives. So let's get into it. For older teens, the focus really begins to shift in preparing them for financial independence. They might be going off to college, they might be going off to missionary, they might be going off living a year abroad. Whatever that is, this is the time to introduce them to more advanced concepts around real world financial responsibilities. And let's start with budgeting and planning. I will just tell you, no one in my house, I was the first person to go to college. No one in my house talked about budgeting and planning, and I got into a lot of trouble in college, and I'll talk a little bit about that, right? But with budgeting and planning, teach them to create a detailed budget. If you're not good at that or you've never done that, this is a great time for you to learn. It's a time for you to sit down and think about, like, walk them through What kind of income are they getting maybe from their part-time job, from grandma and grandpa, and what are their expenses like their phone bill or their car insurance? You may be paying that, but what you want to do is even if you're paying that for them right now, have them build a budget because the idea is that eventually they're going to start paying for that on their own. And it's good for them to know that these are expenses while, and for you to say, we're going to pay this phone bill or this car insurance up until this age. But now they're starting to understand while they may not have to pay it now, they're going to eventually have to pay it. So getting some grounding of saving now for the eventuality that they're going to have this extra expense that they're not having to pay now is going to be an amazing gift that you can give them. But this will help them to show them how to allocate their money wisely to cover all the necessary expenses while also saving for the future. Did you know that the concept of budgeting dates back to ancient Egypt, where scribes kept detailed records of the pharaoh's wealth and his expenditures? So, this isn't something new. This isn't something that you're trying to like shove down your throat. This is actually just really good to do no matter what age you are. The next thing is thinking about planning for future experiences. So, talk to them about saving for college or a car or travel. I know for me, I had to pay my way through school. My parents were not in a financial position to help me pay for school. They were working class folks and just did not have it between raising my brother and myself. They were not able to give us that gift. So I had to pay for college on my own. And it would have just been really great if I had like been learning some of those lessons years before. So by the time I got to college, I really had a good understanding of like how to do that. I had to learn through the school of hard knocks, right? But by having this conversation, you can talk with them and help them start to set realistic savings goals and create a plan for them to achieve those goals. One great thing is using a visual savings tracker like a thermometer. Once again, there's lots of digital tools that help you see their progress, and for them to see their progress and how they're moving towards their goals. And that in and of itself can be very motivating and making the savings process even more tangible. So now let's move into credit and loans. It's really important to explain how credit works and the importance of a good credit score and the risks of debt. Teaching them about the responsibility of credit card use and the impact of interest and rates on debt, especially if they don't make payments on time or if they don't pay off the balance, right? So one of the things when I don't know if this happens anymore, but when I go to college, it was very common the first day of college, there's a long line in the quad of credit card companies and they're all itching for you to sign up for your credit card. They're like, it's almost like fresh meat, right? And they're all sitting there. And I got a credit card and it was like, woohoo, free money. Well, it's not really free, right? And I spent up the card and I actually had a card that didn't really have a limit because uh, it was a card that I could just keep charging, but I was responsible for making the balance at the end of the month. Well, that part went in one ear and out the other. And I got myself into a big hole that I eventually had to get myself out of. But it took a while and I dodged the creditors for a while and really eventually had to face the music. But by that time, the interest had grown so much. I think it probably doubled or tripled what I owed the company. So once again, even if this isn't a conversation that you've been attuned to, you can find resources to help you have that conversation. I think if you have a bank account at a credit union or at a traditional bank, sitting down with them and asking the banker to talk about this will help you as well as your kid, especially if this isn't your forte. There's this historical perspective in the African community that this concept of collective credit and savings through organizations like credit unions has been really, really crucial. These institutions provide access to credit when mainstream banks often denied money to different kinds of communities, particularly immigrant communities, Black families, Native American families. So, this whole idea of really understanding credit and having access to credit could be a really, really valuable conversation. Then there's the all-encompassing student loans. So I once again had no one to tell me, to walk me through student loans. Yes, there's the financial aid officer, but the financial aid officer at the school really just gives you the bare bones. They're like, hey, this is how much you owe. This is what you're going to need to pay. If they even have that conversation. And they really don't really go into like what is the impact, and what are some ways that you need to think about your student loans, and how can they, what does it mean, and when is it due, and how you should be paying that, and factoring that into your budget. Nobody had any of those conversations with me. It's really important to understand the long-term commitment of a student loan and how to manage them effectively. The first student loan program in the United States was created in 1958 through the National Defense Education Act, aimed at producing more scientists and engineers during the Cold War, which is the 70s and the 80s. That's such an interesting thing. I went to a school that was actually set up for, I graduated from Woodbury University, and it was actually set up for vets that were coming back from all the wars, from World War II all the way up to the Korean War. And so there was this real emphasis on making sure that people are able to go to school, even though they may not have had the cash to pay for it. But once again, as we've seen this national get privatized, the student loan business get privatized and move away from the government, you've got to be more mindful and more careful about all the things that are involved in what you're signing up for, and not only what your child is signing up for, but what are you on the hook for. So I think that's another reason why you want to be a part of the conversation, the student loan conversation, because as a minor, there are certain responsibilities that you hold, and you just want to be clear about what those are and what those implications are. So what are some practical and tactical steps that your teens can apply what we've talked about today? So one is, if they don't already have one, getting a part-time job. Now there's so many opportunities. They may not have a car, they may not have transportation, but there's so many ways to like earn money that don't necessarily require you going to a place. I know lots of young people, they learn a skill, maybe it's website design, maybe it's social media management, and they've turned that into a very lucrative earning opportunity. But encouraging them to get a part-time job or some side hustle to learn more about earning and budgeting and saving money. This gives them hands-on experience that is invaluable for developing financial responsibility. Help them set up a direct deposit for their earnings that goes straight into a savings account. One of the things I think I talked about in the first show is one of my first sort of big insights in how I created my own financial sustainability. It's just I had a portion of my paycheck go into a savings account that I never saw and I never touched, right? Having a separate account where anything that either goes into your checking account, or if you have an employer, if your child has an employer, that a portion of that money, they can assign a portion of that money to go straight into a different bank account. Many employers provide this. If they don't, the company that manages their payroll will offer this service as well. So all they need to do is ask. And if they can't, they can ask their bank to do that. They can set up a separate savings account with the bank that holds their checking account, and that money can be siphoned off as soon as their paycheck drops into their bank account. But doing direct deposit instead of having cash is a great way. There are some jobs that pay cash, so getting them into the habit of going straight to the bank after they get paid is just a really good habit. So there aren't all of the shiny objects in between to be able to distract them and spend their money before it gets to the bank. Then there's also financial workshops. So look for local workshops, online courses, and that for financial literacy for your teen. Once again, I talked about the World of Money. It's a great website, great things, information on there for kids of any age to really understand all of these concepts and more, even learning about the stock market, learning about other opportunities uh, to support their financial education. But these are all structured learning environments that provide additional resources. And once again, do it together. Doesn't mean you can't participate, especially if you know that this is not your jam, this is not your gig, but you want to get better. Go on this journey with them. Then finally, there is just having real life experience. Give them financial responsibility, like managing a prepaid debit card, right? I remember when I gave my son a prepaid phone, I said, listen, you're only going to get X amount of minutes on this phone. And I think you can still buy prepaid phones. It's really like even that exercise of managing, you only get a certain amount of minutes a month. So being mindful of how you spend those minutes is a skill that can then be transferred into managing money, right? So it's any kind of exercise where like you have this much, it's got to last you this long. How are you going to manage that and what decisions you're going to make, right? but also not bailing them out, right? And bailing them out, when I say not bailing them out, I don't mean obviously out of travesty situations, but let's say in the case of the prepaid phone, it's the 15th and they only have 10 minutes left on their phone. Okay, sounds like you need to be really diligent about how you're going to use the remaining 10 minutes because it doesn't renew until the end of the month, right? Forcing them to have to make some of these decisions. Sounds like you're not going to be talking to your friends all the time. Sounds like you're not going to be just texting randomly to or making random phone calls and talking whenever. You're going to be very precise about how you use the remaining minutes that you have on your phone. But this real life practice helps them understand that the value of things or money and the importance of budgeting, whether it's budgeting time, budgeting money, or budgeting other kinds of resources. It's just a transferable skill that will actually really serve them also in the workplace. Once again, there are some great apps. There used to be an app called Mint. I think it's going away, but I think Rocket Money is another app that really helps folks manage their goals. But once again, we use a platform, an HR platform, and in that HR platform, there's an opportunity for our employees to actually manage their spending habits and their spending goals, right? So but let's add a layer from a cultural context from a couple of different communities. So we talked a little bit about in Asian cultures, the family plays a significant role in financial education. So once again, get involved. Like, don't think that you need to watch from the sidelines. In the Asian community, this is really a family affair. So during Chinese New Year's, children receive see a red envelope filled with money. This is a tradition that can be used to teach them about saving or spending. Maybe if you come from a different community, let's say you're Irish, maybe you give them a green envelope. I don't know, but it's a really lovely way to celebrate money as opposed to having fear or having a scarcity mindset around money, particularly if that's where that's where you sit. This is an opportunity to not only make sure that they don't adopt that mindset, but maybe start to shift your own mindset, right? So, in the Muslim community, there's this principle of halal investing, which ensures that investments are ethical and aligned with Islamic law. And one of those things is to not do harm, right? There's also, in some communities, like the Quaker community, they will not make investments into what are called sin investments. So that's um, firearms, tobacco, anything related to sex or pornography. But they've got these religious connections that guide what kinds of investing that they can do. And so teaching kids about these different perspectives is also really helpful of opening their minds about doesn't mean that they have to be Muslim to practice these, but maybe they decide, hey, I want to have my values reflected in how I use my money. I want to shop local. I want to make sure that I'm giving my money and the money stays in my community by shopping at the corner business as opposed to buying on Amazon. Right? Having these conversations and showing them different communities and how they think about money and how they integrate money as part of conversations and what are some of the principles or practices of other communities or even your own community can be really helpful in thinking about doesn't mean you convert to that particular community, but information is good information. So what is it that you can think about incorporating in your money practice of how you want to either teach your child, incorporating your own financial practices, but what's going to be valuable and important, and having those conversations for them to start to discern what those things might be for them could be really, really valuable for both of you. So here are some, I've got 3 calls to action for you, right? So monitor and support. Keep an eye on the financial activities of your teen, but allow them to make mistakes and learn from them, okay? The balance of oversight and independence is crucial for them to start developing financial maturity. You can do this by setting regular check-ins to discuss their financial goals and progress and provide guidance over time. I used to meet with my son about once a month. We'd actually go through his bank statement. We'd actually put in from the bank statement, did the thing his actual spend versus what he budgeted, so he can kind of start to see. And we did it together. I did mine and he did his, and we showed them to each other, right? Number 2, encourage goal setting. Help them set financial goals that are short and long term. Goals can range from a savings account or saving for a concert to planning college tuition. Setting goals and writing them down increases the likelihood of them achieving them by 42%, according to a study by Dominican University. The third thing is provide resources. Offer books, articles, resources to help them continue to learn about finance. Some great reads include Rich Dad, Poor Dad for Teens by Robert Kiyosaki and The Teen's Guide to Personal Finance by Joshua Holmberg. Create your own financial book club where you can discuss and talk about finance related books together. By following these steps and being actively involved in your teens' education, you can help them develop skills that they need to become financially independent and responsible adults. That's it for this segment on preparing teens for financial independence. Let's make sure every teen learns the value of how to manage money wisely. Starting the journey with your kids is a great way for you to learn and get what you never got. Well, that wraps up another episode of Do Different Better with your host, Elaine Rasmussen. Today, we talked about kids and cash, teaching financial literacy to your children. We talked about financial literacy. We talked about starting the journey with your kids and some practical and tactical ways for you to learn together and get what you never got. I can't wait for next week's conversation. Join me in the next episode of Do Different Better when we continue your wealth education journey. I will see you next week and I'll show you how to do different better. Let me know what you think of the show. We love comments. So tell us how this show helped you. If there's a money question or finance question you have, or if there's someone you want me to interview, hit me up on LinkedIn or Instagram. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button and follow us on all of our socials. I'll see you next time.